Hello, I'm Michael,
And I'm Stefano.
and today we're just going to be talking to you about our independent novels. Now, Stefano, the book you read was called Fahrenheit 451, right?
Yes.
Okay, is it okay if I just ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
Alright. Now, who is the main character and what was his purpose throughout the novel?
The main character is called Guy Montag, and he was a fireman. In the era in which this novel takes place, firemen did not have the job of extinguishing fires. They now had to burn books down.
Okay, interesting.
And so they wanted to burn books down because they wanted people to be equal.
And who is they? Like the people in power?
Yes, the people in power wanted people to be equal. They didn't want smart people and dumb people. They wanted everybody to be equal, and they found that the books would also be contradicting themselves sometimes.
So, when you say the books should be contradicting themselves, what do you mean by that?
Like, some had different point of views and some had others that would contradict. One would say, let's say, that gay rights should be allowed, and some would say that they wouldn't. So they didn't want that, and they found that books were not good.
Okay, so they had bad influences.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Do you know why the book is called Fahrenheit 451? Is there any relevance to the novel?
Yes, there is actually. Fahrenheit 451 is the degrees that paper is when it is burnt.
Okay.
And also, it was the department number that they had on the helmet of Guy Montag was 451 for that reason.
Okay, so basically the fireman, the fireman place? Like, what do you mean? The fireman institution?
Yeah, was the number of the fireman department was 451.
Okay, so the building. Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect, understandable. And you were talking about it takes 451 degrees Fahrenheit to burn papers, and why would they want to burn papers again?
Because, like I said, they wanted to burn books down, and books are made out of paper, so to burn the paper, they needed 451 degrees Fahrenheit to burn the book in itself.
Okay, perfect. Can you tell me a bit about the characters in this book? Other than Guy Montag, is there any secondary characters?
The biggest secondary characters is Captain Betty. He was the captain of the department.
Okay, perfect.
Then there's Mildred, the wife of Guy Montag,
Okay.
and others such as Mrs. Phelps and Mrs. Bowles, who were friends of the wife,
Okay.
and Clarice, who was a neighbor of Guy Montag.
Okay, understandable. And Guy Montag, did he do anything in this book? Did he save people's lives? We know that he's a fireman. Did he stop anything? Did he burn books? What happened?
Well, at one point in the book, Clarice starts talking to Guy about how before firemen used to extinguish fires, and now they burn books. And so he asked his captain that, and his captain didn't really answer. But then after there was a fire alarm that they had to go to a house and burn books. There was books hidden in the attic.
Oh.
As they went into the house, there was an old
Whose house
woman.
was this?
It was an old woman's house.
Okay, perfect.
And so the old woman really didn't want them to burn the books
Okay.
because the books for her is something she really wanted to know what the books were about because you weren't allowed, and she was interested about what the books had a meaning to them.
Oh, so she was hiding the books from the firemen.
Yes.
Okay.
And as they started to get the books in the attic and they were going to burn them, one fell into Guy's arms and he slid it under his coat jacket so nobody else would realize.
So he can read it, perhaps?
Yeah, because he wanted to know also. He was a new person that wanted to know what books were about also.
Oh, okay, so he was curious about the whole idea.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And could you tell me a little bit more about, I don't know, let's say, if there's any meaning to this book? Is there any symbolism, do you think, between any of the characters or anything like that?
Well, there was a character called Professor Faber that he was in a park one day, and Guy Montag approached him.
Okay.
And Professor Faber wanted to walk away, but Guy Montag said it's okay, sit down, and they had a bit of a conversation, and he gave him his number and address for anything further that they wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And Guy knew that he was a professor, so he figured that he read books. And
so is this a symbolic? How is this symbolic? Was he religious?
Well, it was that the guy had. Well, it wasn't that he was religious. That the guy read books, and one of the books that fell down was a book, and it was the Bible.
Oh.
And so he called Professor Faber, and Professor Faber knew that he was a fireman. So when he called him, right away he answered the call and hung up because he was suspicious that maybe Guy knew that he had books and that he was going to come there and burn the books down.
Oh, okay.
But Guy Montag didn't want to do that. He just wanted to speak to him and ask him about if there was any more Bibles in the world.
Okay.
And
he knew all of this? He was aware of how many books there were? Or he was
No, he wasn't aware how many books. That's why he wanted to ask him. Because he wasn't aware. He wanted to get one, like another one, so he could read it.
Oh, okay.
And so he goes to Professor Faber's house, and he speaks to him. And in this time, Captain Betty figured out that Guy Montag had a book. He took a book from the house. And so he gave him a 48-hour span to read the book and see what he understands, and then he had to give it back and get burnt.
So Captain Betty, the police, the fireman captain,
yeah,
he allowed Guy Montag to read a book. Why?
Because he knew that all firemen at one point, when they were doing their job, were gonna think, oh, why are like books being burnt? Why are they so important? Why do they have to be burnt?
So the firemen are curious amongst their job.
Yes, so that's why he allowed him to read the book. But what Captain Betty did not know is that Guy Montag had more than one book.
Okay, so he was just going to let him slide with maybe one book, and then we're never going to talk about it again.
During that 48 hours, yes.
Okay.
And so what Guy Montag did was he started reading books that he hid with his wife. And one of the books he decided to give back. Not the Bible, not the one that he was really interested in, but one of them. So like this, he'd think that he gave back the book that he had.
Oh, okay. To trick Captain Betty.
Yes.
All right, perfect.
And when he first got there, Captain Betty threw away the book without looking at the title, without looking at anything. He just threw it away and he was going to burn it.
Okay.
And right away, he started telling him all kinds of stuff how books are bad.
Okay.
Because he didn't want him to get, oh yeah, books are good now, I want to read more, I want to get more and stuff. So he kept on telling him all kinds of stuff why books are bad.
Okay, alright, perfect. And you mentioned to me earlier something happened with the wife of Guy, and what's her name again?
Mildred.
And what happened to her? You told me earlier, I remember.
That, well, early on in the book, she actually tried killing herself, but Guy Montag saved her by getting, the doctors to come and take out the bad blood and put in new blood.
Okay.
And she denied that she tried to kill herself. So it didn't really go on that long in the book. It was just the beginning when that happened.
Okay, so it was like sort of like an opener to the book.
Yeah, in other words, but it was just, yeah.
Okay. So one last question: would you recommend this book to which audiences? To whom would you recommend this book?
I'd recommend it probably not to kids because they wouldn't understand. They don't really read books with such the good literature that was in this book. But I recommend it to teenagers, and I recommend it to adults and parents that like to read books because it is such a good book and it explains a story that no other books has.
Okay, so it's unique in its kind.
Yes.
All right, perfect.